bad news. The Grizzlies announced last night that Ja Morant will miss the remainder of the season with a torn labrum in his right shoulder. Obviously a tough blow here for the Grizzlies, who were finally starting to establish a little bit of momentum after a brutal start to the season, which was missing Ja Morant for 25 games because of the suspension. They were 6-3 in the 9 games Ja Morant played. He averaged 25 and 8. He came back and was like a superstar just like that. But he is done for the season. So, what does this mean? Besides, I guess, the obvious that the Grizzlies are already were climbing an uphill battle to get in the play-in, get in the playoffs, and that's probably a wrap on the season?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's a wrap. They have the worst offense in the NBA, period. And Ja Morant was obviously going to bring that back when he was out there, and as you said, 6-3 with him. They're 7-20 without him. So when looking at the standings, I'm still shocked that now with the play-in tournament that you've got 10 teams deep that are 500 or better, are going to be 500 or better when it comes down to it. And then you still have an 11th and a 12th. The Jazz and Warriors are still playing well enough to be knocking in. So the Grizzlies are a 13th place team. The weird part about it, I think, is that we didn't see it happen in a game because it either happened just during workouts or it accumulated over time. Like a labrum tear quite often does that. It's the classical baseball injury that just happens over time over his shoulder. So that's a wrap, unfortunately. Look, they're going to play hard with Marcus with Banks and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane. Of course. They're going to play extremely hard. Banks, smart.
So
what am I thinking?
Marcus Smart.
Marcus Banks. I had a Marcus
Banks.
We just went through all those Michigan teams, so I went from Marcus Smart to Marcus Banks. They're going to play hard, but as I said, an incredibly bad offense. So the easier shots that he produced for those guys was quite evident in that small run that he made. So we can just talk about if they're going to tank. I think that's the biggest question to be moving on after this terrible news for them.
Well, I mean, they're going to tank. They'll be one of the 6 worst teams in the league just because they're number 6 right now. But they have 5 more wins already than a Hornets team who has 8 wins. So they probably can't get any lower in the odds than 6th. But this still can be, if you're looking for a silver lining, if they consider this a gap year in Memphis, with Ja missing the first 25 games, playing 9, and then missing the last half of the season, it is a chance for them to add some young talent that they might not be able to had the season they were anticipating. If they're able to pick, I don't know, if they win the lottery, they could pick first. Who knows, right? But they could easily hop into the top 4. That's what happened when the Spurs got Tim Duncan. It's also what happened when the Warriors got James Wiseman. You can it can go either way, but at least they're going to have a chance at that. It's just too bad because the Grizzlies had started to put it together a little bit. They were definitely playing better and would have at least made a run, I think, at trying to get into the play-in tournament. Who knows if they would have got there, but seems far-fetched now. So I assume that Jackson, Smart, Bane will play for a while here, and then they'll probably get shut down at the end of the season.
Yeah, or like Ziller put in his newsletter, they pick up an injury that's like keeps you on the shelf for a week, but suddenly that week turns into 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. What's the rush back? You guys are right. I mean, the question is the whole time here, even when Ja came back, it was like, would making the play-in without Steven Adams, who's out for the season, without Brandon Clark, who maybe could have returned in April, but I think that's unlikely now, would that be worth it than getting a lottery pick, like losing that and just getting into the play-in? Some people could say maybe, they would feel like they could beat anyone because with Ja Morant, they're that good. But now they can just lean into this tank, pseudo-tank, whatever we're calling it. And they'll have probably, whether they finish, 5th or 6th in the odds, it's going to give you like a 9 or 10% chance at the number 1 pick. And maybe they can bounce up a little bit. So they get to add a young talent. I don't know the draft all that well. Everybody says it's a crappy one. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but they're going to get a young player, obviously on a controlled cost, to at least add to this roster. But it does suck. What a weird season.
A weird season, because it started with an off-court incident, why he was suspended the entire time. But for them to be 6th currently, as far as a draft pick would go right this second, is very different for them because they could finish top 2 in the West quite often. As you've seen in the last couple of years, they're a very, very good team when Ja Morant plays. But it obviously started extremely weird, and then the team just got together when he got back. And they won on Sunday without him over the Phoenix Suns, looking pretty good with him on the sideline, but obviously the injury had already happened on the Saturday. So, there were some rumors coming out, and unfortunately, it's just Just a bad turn for this.
Yeah, and as sickos, I mean, and even casuals, like basketball is just better when Ja Morant is playing because the guy's a walking highlight, and he does stuff you don't see all that often because he's that athletic. We had talked about like, hey, is there any chance he would maybe go in the dunk contest? He was always saying he wasn't, so it was probably unlikely. Now that's a wrap. That's not happening, but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, ever. Yeah, exactly. I guess I can put that to bed. He is not going to be in the dunk contest, but just a bummer, and sort of out of nowhere this news that he was going to be done for the season. And again, you add that to Adams and Clark and now Ja Morant. I guess the silver lining is, well, they're all happening within the same season. And by all accounts, he's going to come back fully healthy in 24-25. That shouldn't be an issue is what they say right now.
Yeah, but you bring up good analogies of, hey, we got Tim Duncan, and we just kind of shed, David Robinson aside there for a season. Or the Warriors were hurt, and they went and had the number 2 pick. So I think that changes what they do at the trade deadline. Maybe we just get rid of some people and just try and get worse immediately and try to get rid of, some of their young guys they don't believe in or some of their older guys and try and get as bad as possible, unfortunately.
Marcus Smart seems like could be available going forward. I would have to think that he seems like a guy that they would want to have for a playoff push. I don't know if they've necessarily gotten the better side of that trade, though Tyus Jones hasn't really done much for the Wizards either, but I would imagine Smart is somebody who could be gettable here since the Grizzlies won't be buyers at the very least at the trade deadline.
And he's on the older side. Next year when he played with Morant, if and when Morant comes back, he'd be 30. So, yeah, I would see the older guys, the guys that they would deal, just a few weeks away.